Okay, well, welcome back everyone to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. I am here with our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, acupuncture, functional nutrition and supplementation, and lab testing, all out of his clinic, Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida, as well as virtually all over the world. He's worked with athletes and celebrities, and tonight is here to answer your questions. So let's kick off with your clinical insight for the week.
Yeah, so obviously I'm in practice, and every week I have these moments. I'm like, wow, like whether it's something I just learned or something that just kind of came to me in a different way. And today, when I was in practice, it was almost like I had this multiple time repeated message. And I'll kind of walk you down everyone down this road. So young lady was in, she's probably, I say young, again, she's in her 50s. I guess I consider myself pretty young too. So super healthy, vibrant. And I think that when I think of old, young, that's all I think always about energy. So anyways, young lady in, certainly on her path of, creating health and, following a good journey right now, probably in the best journey she's been in her life. And, without, things go wrong, sometimes things go right, but nonetheless. So she finally kind of influenced, is probably the right word, her husband to do our cleanse recently.
Okay.
And I haven't seen him since then. So she was sharing with me today that he did it, and he did it finally, which was amazing. She's done it for years, and she has this everyday journey. She literally has a health regimen every day with her vitamins, her supplements, her workout, her exercise. She does her videos at home, and it's part of her life. It's not a must, it's a want, which is really fun. So anyway, so he finally did the cleanse this year, and it was really interesting. So I asked her, of course, what was his biggest takeaway? And what she kind of responded to is that I don't know if he had one, that he didn't notice much of anything.
Wow, really?
Yeah, yes. And here's the interesting thing, and this was really my clinical insight, that it all comes back to, on an individual basis, our choice to tune in and then practice being tuned in. And Karen, this really sets a tone for us. And I think many of our listeners that are watching this, they've probably becoming more and more intuitive and in tune to their body and into their health. So for example, I'll speak to a lot of people and I'll ask them, let's just say we take sleeping, for example. They say, oh, I have a hard time falling asleep. Well, are you on your phone before night? Well, and I could tell just by the way they look at me, they're saying to me, that doesn't make a difference. It doesn't bother me. I can be on my phone all day long. It doesn't bother me. I can, or I'll ask them, what kind of shows do you watch before you go to bed? And some people they have no connection to the type of energy a show, whether it be a horror show or a comedy, whatever it may be. Or, some people talk about the moon and its influence on there, or maybe we'll get into food. I've had people who've gone off alcohol for 10, 20, 30 days and say, man, I can't really notice anything. Or they come off of chemicals, they get rid of gluten, I can't really notice anything. But in order to notice something, you have to notice in the first place. Yeah. You got to know your body. And there is a large section, the majority of the people out of just in general, our society, people are becoming less and less in tune with their own body, their own mental state, and their own feelings. And that was really apparent today. And it did not surprise me one bit. Yet it happened a couple of times because through the day, not because of anything, but as a result of hearing that, I saw it taking place several times today. Where the more in tune you are, the beauty of being more in tune, and I don't mean sensitive. That's not what I'm saying. I don't mean you're sensitive to everything and all of a sudden everything bothers you. I really mean in tune. You know what serves you. So for some people, we'll take for TV, for example, watching no TV is the only thing, because just the energy coming off a screen is too much for them, and it keeps their sympathetic nervous system wound up. Some people, before they go to bed, watching something silly, like a Friends rerun or a Seinfeld or just some kind of comedy, it just worked for them. Some people like more heroic things, so they need to watch adventure movies. That's kind of the category I fit in. I like those type of movies, even though they'll get my heart pumping. When the good guy wins at the end, it just always feels good, and I'll sleep just like a baby. So tuning in to those personal things, what serve us, and even with food. So listen, we talk about here on the show that it's God's garden. The next part of God's garden is being able to intuitively know what foods serve you and what don't. So it was real interesting today speaking to that lady, and I think she had the same thing. She's, about her husband. God bless him. She loves him, and it was simply one of those. He doesn't pay attention.
Yeah.
Doesn't listen to his body. The challenge, the trap there that lies within there is when you do have a problem, pain, blood pressure, whatever it may be, the only approach is quick fix. It's the only quick. It's the only way that it works. And we see a lot of it. That's where, the healthcare system feeds on that. It feeds on the fear. If you don't fix this now, things will get worse. So therefore, take this, it'll go away. So, if you guys are out there and you're listening to this, ask yourself, how in tune are you to your body's wants and needs? I often talk about just a headache, and headaches aren't rocket science. Yeah. Either you got too much tension in your body, maybe you need an adjustment or something like that, but either too much tension, and all tension is self-induced, whether we put ourselves in a position on a wrong type of roller coaster, that's one way, or we're literally holding too much tension, we create tension, or dehydrated. Those two are the typical reasons. And then we can have chemicals, too much sugar, et cetera.
Yeah.
You should be quick. If you get a headache, you should quick be able to say, is this chemical? Is this a lack of water? Or is this a tension headache? It should be like that. And I know there's pages and books and all these different types of headaches. It should be that fast. You should just know which one it is and have a self-remedy. Tension headache, either go get yourself a massage and adjustment or go to bed. And that'll pretty much fix it. So being in tune and being more intuitive, and I think this is where there's a massive gap. I think, a lot of people that would be listening to a show like this or other health podcasts are becoming more and more in tune because they like their bodies. They want them to thrive. And then there's a big gap between not listening at all. So I'll, of course, encourage everyone to be more and more in tune the best that they can. And I'll tell you this, this is the other part of it. From a practitioner perspective, and I think most doctors would understand this, if you're not in tune, your doctor's not in tune, because part of our job is we're investigators. And that's really a part of our job. It is our job to do the great doctoring of finding out what has taken place to get you to this point. We don't treat symptoms, we treat people that have symptoms. And that's the way it really should be. But if you don't know, so I can't tell you how many times I've said to people, Karen, so what makes it better or what makes it worse? And the simple answer is, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're not paying attention. And I don't even have to say what it was, a headache, a neck pain, a problem, or what makes you gain weight or lose weight. I don't know. Like we do need to know. We do know. We're just not paying attention. So I would encourage everyone to keep dialing in. The beauty is when you are in tune and you can help articulate that either to yourself or you help a practitioner, you give them that information. Well, doc, when this happens, man, it really makes our job streamlined and it really helps us help you. So continue to tap in, know how you are when it comes to your movement in your life, what serves you, how you eat in your life, but also how you think as well.
Yeah, I love that. And also, I think that sometimes, like, let's say with this person, maybe they've done the cleanse, and because they're feeling best, they potentially are feeling better and not noticing. Sometimes it takes almost to feel bad again to be like, oh, actually, I felt better. Like even I talk about my back pain and how much, like, the first time I did an elimination protocol, my back pain went. But at the beginning, to be honest, I probably didn't notice that it was gone until it took me like a little bit to be like, wait a minute, my back hasn't been sore for like 2 weeks, like it almost took a minute. It wasn't like I noticed right away. It almost took a minute because you notice the bad things. Oh, that hurts. But sometimes you just don't notice that something slowly gets better if you've made some changes like the cleanse.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on there. And that also kind of leads to the conversation where that's how important pain is in life, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional. We have to be in pain in order for it to have growth. I know that sounds awful. And I mean that on every level. I mean it on, like our psyche, our mental fitness, our physical fitness, our emotional well-being. Without pain, it doesn't move us into the right direction. If all we do is seek to eliminate the pain, you're not getting stronger. You're actually becoming more fragile. My days all mixed together, which I find out is a good thing. If you don't know what day it is, usually that means it's really good. And that
Okay, that's great, because I
yeah.
know what day it is.
For all of you out there that have no idea what day it is from day to day, or you don't know the date, know that is a sign that you got yourself a good life.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
That's
So
weird.
So the idea, a couple of days ago, it seems like a couple of days ago, I did one of my posts, and it was about it was kind of it was a Facebook post, just like a minute video about, are we tapping out too early?
Oh, okay.
Literally, are we becoming so fragile? Are we getting so wimpy that we tap out too early? And so I've had the opportunity to practice martial arts in my life, and especially Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And the beauty is you put yourself in these unique situations where you're in danger intentionally.
Yes.
And here's, without going through the whole video here, just because I want to get to these questions, here's the beauty of why we need to put ourselves in awkward positions, and we have to have some pain. In jiu-jitsu, your opponent is literally trying to choke you unconscious.
Yes.
If not choke you unconscious, they are trying to break your arm, your leg, or wrist, or knee, something, your shoulder. They're trying to do it. It is your responsibility to tap out before that happens. Yes. But just being on the mat, you're putting yourself to get stronger. Now, here's what's unique about the martial arts situation, especially Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When we're on the mats, you never blame your partner for choking you out. You never blame them and say, that was too hard. You shouldn't do that. You hurt my feelings. We don't do that. What happens is, because we've entered that tunnel and we've got ourselves in danger, and we felt the pain of your arm about to pop, you go all that way. And then you look at yourself in the mirror and say, man, I got to do something better here. I got to get fitter. I got to get stronger. I got to learn new technique. You look in instead of looking out. So that is one of the reasons when parents say to me, do you think my kid should do BJJ? I want to jump up and down and say, yes. You want to teach that little boy or girl to literally learn how to be a stronger human being, get them involved in martial arts. Yeah. Because there's no crying in that game. Like you have to you have to tough it up a little bit, because you're there to expose those weaknesses. And then you show up the next time to hopefully make the correction. So I do think, I know we're a little tangent here, but nonetheless.
Oh my God. Go watch some BJJ in Brazil. So feel like another lifetime, I watched a lot of BJJ in Brazil.
Yeah.
And man, they don't tap out in Brazil.
I know. And then they pay the consequences. Yeah. But
the consequences are broken arms and all sorts. Maybe a little bit.
The beauty of doing that, or anything in life. And so the parody might be starting a business. Yeah. Listen, it's hard, and it could be kind of dangerous. It's risky. It could be getting into a relationship and not knowing. There's no guarantees with our health, with our wealth, and with our relationships. And that's really the analogy there. But we have to be willing to go all in. And when you do that, that's when you can get so much more out. So, all right. So my clinical insight, tap in, tune in, and and find out a little bit more about yourself, so you can let yourself grow. All right, let's dive into some of those questions.
I love it. All right, first question here today. My husband can fast for so much longer than me. Is intermittent fasting different for men and women?
The answer is yes, 100%. It is way different for men and women, and we're definitely different. So here's probably the simple fundamentals where it's different. So women, one, if you're still cycling, absolutely around your cycle, stop fasting. Okay. So this is where some women get themselves in trouble, Karen, where they fast, and even though their body is, usually 3, 5, 7 days out from the actual period beginning, the body's in this detox mode, is sloughing off cells, and it's under duress, and it's essentially in a little bit of a weakened state. During that time, it's not a smart move to be doing any kind of extended fasting. So I usually pull the plug and say, just go back to about 12 hours. 12 hours should be happy for everybody. And so we're not double taxing the body. If you do that, no, you have to have a really good strategic plan and understand the whole thing. This isn't just, I'm not going to eat today until I get to my 16 hours, or whatever it may be. It is important that you understand what's going on in there. If you double tax, you can really start to create some hormone imbalances.
Yeah, okay.
Where fasting can be a very good tool to create balance with the hormonal system. If we double tax it, that's one thing we got to be really mindful. The second part of that is, and I don't know how old the listener, the person writing that question is, if your body has also entered, that perimenopausal phase, let's just say between 40 and 50 years old, and it could be a little earlier, a little later than that. If the woman's in that phase, things are also changing in their bodies, and their response time and their capacity to respond to stress starts to change a little bit, because the ovaries are about to retire, which means that they're going to take the role that they did of making hormones and pass those on to the adrenal glands. And the adrenal gland's primary job is to help manage things like blood pressure and different types of stress and stuff like that. But it's already got a full-time job. And during perimenopause, so the female body has a little bit more, I'll say like a little bit more vulnerability. So we got to be very careful with extended fasting for those individuals. And I see a lot of mistakes there. The other part, Karen, is that, anything, if you get to 12 hours and you do it consistently, know that you're benefiting your body. You're benefiting, especially, your gut health and just your metabolic system. Most women will do good between like the 12 and 16 hours, usually 14, 16 hours. It's like the happy place. And then for men, usually about 16 to 18 hours. Either way, though, there are other contributing factors. And this is where doing it with a coach, or, maybe someone like myself who's real familiar with it. If you go into intermittent fasting with gut issues, we did a whole episode on gut. If you go into intermittent fasting with a depleted microbiome, which is most people, and it's one of my favorite tools to help the gut health, yet if you already do that, your level of B vitamins are going to be significantly low. And it's almost a requirement that you substitute and supplement B vitamins. Because the way this works is that during stress, which intermittent fasting is intended to be, you burn up your B vitamins at a much faster rate. B vitamins
This is men and women?
Men and women. Yeah. So I'm kind of jumping around here. But this is where, I guess my point being is, this is important, where each one of us is different. That's men and women definitely different, and each one of us very different. But if you're extending your fasting, you have to also know what else needs to be kind of brought in there. And women, especially during cycling phases, it's definitely different for you and your husband. Remember, never compare, I don't care, woman to woman, man to man, never compare your health and your practices to another individual's. Even here, where I try to give as much protocols as I can, or strategies, that at the end of the day, each one should be unique to each individual. And that's really kind of the umbrella of functional medicine and functional nutrition, is that we're trying to dial it in on an individual basis. A lot of them work in the shotgun effect, but to simply answer that question, men and women are definitely different when it comes to fasting. And we should know those parameters. The one thing I just always want to remind, especially my ladies, because I just see it more out there, please do not use intermittent fasting as a way of starving yourself and calling it a new technique.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Like that, I see very frequently. I see women go, "Oh, I love this intermittent fasting." And it is deep down, it's because they are starving themselves, and because they are just trying to lose some weight. And now they have a technique or a cool thing that they're calling it intermittent fasting, time restricted eating. And they don't eat, and then they just go into these small blocks, and then they eat some bad foods, and they do it again the next day. The body will figure that out, and it will go into starvation mode, and it will start to hold more. And that's where we start to see the metabolic disruption and some of the hormone imbalances caused by these techniques.
And so what's the, because you can use intermittent fasting for weight loss in a healthy way, right?
In a healthy way. And that's where, Karen, like,
what is the healthy way compared to what these people that you're saying are more starving themselves?
A lot of it will come down with making sure we're getting the proper nutrients back in the body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So refeeding and how we break our fasts. So being very intelligent. All right, I'm going to go 16 hours today without food. I'm going to eat in an 8-hour block. That probably means about 2 meals. How do I get as many fiber, fat, and proteins into my body and create some good balance? Mm-hmm. That's where it really becomes important. We're not talking about calorie restriction. We're not now, inevitably calories will go down. That's almost an always when it comes to intermittent fasting. Your stomach shrinks. So you physically can't eat as big of a meal unless you're gorging, which is more emotional. Yeah. So it's not uncommon that caloric intake will be less. And then inevitably the individual is going to typically has the discipline to do some fasting, is also paying attention to the food groups that you're putting in your body. A lot of times it's not required, but inevitably you start to go a little bit lower carb. And I'm all for healthy carbs, fruits and vegetables and all that. But what inevitably happens is that we see people just start to move gently away from the simple carbohydrates, things like bread and muffin and gluten, which is super healthy. So to your point, intermittent fasting kind of sets the stage as a great way for us to lose weight. And most people I see that are intermittent fasting correctly and kind of weaving it in and out of their lives, in and out of the seasons, have a very, very good results with weight loss.
Yeah. And so really, and intermittent fasting is actually easier if you take some of those foods out anyway. I mean, I know for me, if I've brought some of those foods in, I'm definitely a lot more hungry, or I find it a lot harder to go, you know, I just feel like you feel like eating more often the more you're eating those types of foods, right?
Yeah. One of the mistakes that I see too commonly is that they keep the simple carbohydrates in, Karen. And that's things like bread and muffin and crackers and stuff like that. And what happens is that's how quickly your body thinks it's in starvation mode, where it has no food, and you don't necessarily teach it to regain the adaptability to become fat adaptive. And as a result, and the way that happens is that when you break your fast, you're breaking with a simple carbohydrate, bread, sugar, carbs, those types of things. And your body goes boom, and it instantly has that food. So now it just waits. It's going to hold on for dear life until it gets it again. And we train our bodies to do that. So if you're breaking your fast, you're wondering why you have plateaus, or you're breaking your fast with simple carbohydrates, take a look at it, get in tune with your body, and, sit back a little bit and see if you can break it with some fiber. You see if you can break it with just some fats or some proteins, and lean away from those carbohydrates. Because the more you use the simple carbohydrates, it's such an easy source of fuel.
Yeah.
For your body to instantly have energy, and for your brain. So remember, your brain loves glucose, and it'll burn it up. And then, that's where we also can get like brain fog and stuff like that, but it uses that as an energy source.
Yeah.
So if it waits all day and then you all of a sudden feed it that, it's going to wait all day again for it.
Okay. But 12 hours isn't really that can kind of be a standard for everyone.
Yes. Every one of us, for the most part, unless you have some medical condition, you should be comfortably going 12 hours, which is a nice amount of time to call time out for your gut.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, cool. Awesome. Should we do next question?
Yeah, let's keep rolling.
So my recent vitamin D levels on my labs came back very low. How fast do they drop if you're not taking supplements?
So I'll see a lot of this time of year. And I'll answer that in two ways. I'll talk about how fast they can drop, and then what it takes to get them back up. So there's several factors, and especially time of year is a big one. So if you did your vitamin D levels at the end of the summer.
And how do you do your vitamin D levels?
Really, really simple. This is almost a no-brainer for every one of us. They now have at-home vitamin D test. It's, and
especially, vitamin D is been shown to be one of the biggest things to help us through things like the pandemic we're going through, right?
Karen, that's not even scratching the surface. Literally, vitamin D, what we know is that it's on almost every cell. There's a receptor for almost on every cell. There's a vitamin D receptor on almost every cell in the human body, which tells us we need a lot of vitamin D. We should have very good levels. And I'm going to err people to go on the normal to high levels versus just normal levels until proven otherwise, especially if you're using a healthy source. So the time of year you test and how much you're taking will play a big role. So if you take it at the end of the summer, especially around here, you're getting a good amount of sun. That's the best, healthiest way to get vitamin D levels. And you're supplementing a certain amount of vitamin D, and you test and your results are good. Awesome. Now, if you go into the fall and the sun quickly starts to lose its effectiveness on the skin and converting, the sun rays into a cholesterol, vitamin D, the hormone of vitamin D. If all of a sudden we're not exposing ourselves to the sun and you're taking less vitamin D because maybe the pandemic was slowing down and you just got a little lazy with your supplements, that can drop relatively fast. So vitamin D supplement has about a 12 to 4, say 2-week, a 2-week half-life.
Okay.
Yeah. So what that means that in a short period of time, you can actually see results drop within 30 days. You can start to see things drop. And if you are changing your supplementation and you're not in the sun, you could see some significant drops. And I see that frequently here in the, down here in Florida, where the sun goes away and people don't get any sun for,
Sun goes away in Florida?
Well, it doesn't go away. Its strength isn't enough to activate the production of vitamin D. And then maybe people don't take the supplement. So on the flip side of that, when people start taking, if I do a lab test and I see, oh, Karen, you came in at 40, there's a scoring. And usually they'll say, well, on the labs, they'll say anything above 30 is okay. No, that's not okay. I'm saying minimum is 50. I like to see people literally between 70 and 100. Okay. I just find people that have these high vitamin D levels are just doing really, really good.
Yeah.
And the more I pay attention to it, Karen, there's other areas that we see that the vitamin D really facilitate health. And that's things like good mood. We forget about vitamin D is a big part of this mood. And we have so many people with anxiety and, and these other definitions or these, labels of depression and just stuff where vitamin D might be the answer for many of these people to stay on, the healthy straight and narrow there. So
how often do you test these levels?
Yeah. So I was just going to get there. So if I find them low, I don't really test before 60 days, 90 days. So I like to see people on them. Now, everybody's a little bit different. I don't know if there's an exact science to this. So if you look it up, it'll vary a little bit. Yet 6 to 8 weeks seems to be clinically where we see an uptake. So if you're doing something for, 2 months at a time and, you bumped up your vitamin D, you were taking, 2,000 IUs, you bump it up to 5,000 or 6,000 IUs and you're putting a lot back into your body, doing that on a daily basis. Maybe you went from 5 to 10. Either way, 60 days, retest in 60 days. There's an at-home test. Karen, literally you prick your finger, put it on a piece of paper, send it in the mail. You get results in a couple of days. And then this isn't rocket science. This is
where can people order those? How do we get it?
We have them in our clinic. That's how we order them. So,
Okay, so get in touch with Balance.
Yeah, and that's not one. And listen, I tell people, we will send you results. No big deal. You don't have to have a consult with me. If you want one, and there might be other things you want to discuss and put that in the pile. Yeah, we'll happily send you your results. And it's not, if you look at them, you've been taking 2,000 IUs and it's gone up 15 points, but you want it up 40 points, bump it up again. Yeah. Invest that time and a little bit of money in yourself because it's well worth. And I think those tests are like $75.
Yeah, they're so cost effective now.
Yeah, that's a kind of a neat thing. We're seeing a little competition out there. We're seeing more creative ways for labs to happen. There's some are better than others, no doubt. There's some food sensitivity tests out there that I don't think are worth anything. But we are seeing some competitiveness in the cash space.
Yeah.
For labs, and it's big business, and I think it's only going to get better. So I'm pretty excited about all that.
Which is amazing because then we can send out these tests anywhere, like throughout the US, really, can't we?
Yeah, we literally send these out every week. We send out that one. We send out a lot. So there's a couple home tests that we do, of course, an adrenal stress index test, which is just a saliva test. But there's a real easy one for the omega panel as well, and which is I think is one of the more important ones that every one of us should know. Our relationship between omega-3s and omega-6, same thing, exact same way you do the vitamin D, same company we use. You prick your finger, put it on a piece of paper, send it in, you learn your omega-3 test. I know sidetracked here. The reason that's so important, the omega-3 panel, Karen, we now know that your omega-3 score is more relevant to your risk for heart disease than cholesterol is.
And yet no one tests it. Nobody.
You have to special, and again, it's a $75 test. And you don't need me as I'll gladly.
Super cost effective.
What's that?
Super cost effective.
Super cost effective and very easy to self-monitor. That's where you might change up your fish oil source. You might double down on it, whatever. But that one, if you guys happen to do that one, I like to see things, your score should come at least 7.5 and above. Really, I like to see 8 and above. And that's and you'll get a panel where you have your DHA, EPAs, your relationship to omega-6s. So it's very effective test. And it is one of those ones for all causes of mortality. If you know your omega-3 panel is solid, you're in good shape.
Yeah, awesome. I love that we can do that these days. Like we can just send it out. You can jump on, if somebody does want to do it themselves, they can. If they don't want to, you can jump on Zoom with them, have a consult anywhere across the country. Like I think that's an exciting part of some of the changes that are coming into the healthcare system, is that we're able to work with people anywhere.
Yeah, that is one of the blessings. I had this discussion as well. Someone hadn't seen me in about a year, and I said, "Oh, Doc, you're only in the office a couple of days a week now."
Yeah.
How'd that happen? And again, a long story anyways. And I said, well, you know what, when I'm not here, I actually do work on a couple other days, but I'll do all virtual. And it's really been a blessing. So to me, COVID has been a blessing in the way that it has helped provide us a different opportunity to reach out to people and connect with them doing this, the one-on-one. So we set a time aside every single week for just one-on-ones like this. We do labs and, all the things we discuss here. So, and sometimes we'll, be discussing the vitamin D levels and the omega-3 panels and different strategies you can have to bring up. Not everyone does really good with vitamin D supplementation. They have to figure out other ways to get it.
Yeah. So can you take too much?
Yeah, you could. Yeah. So I rarely recommend over 10,000 IUs at any given time.
Like a day, you mean? Or?
Yeah, in a day. Usually I try to use a good, healthy source. And there's a couple of reasons. My intention is not just to shove so much that there's so much in the bloodstream that you get a good test score.
Yeah.
Okay. Practicing from this perspective, from a functional medicine perspective, we want the body to be able to absorb that vitamin D and upload it into the body. Yeah. And if you're putting 50,000 IUs in a day, that's not doing anything. Your body literally will not be able to absorb that. So I find between 5 and 10,000 IUs, retest, make sure we're getting out in the sun. So wherever you are in whatever part of the country or the world that you are, we still need exposure outside. That's how it naturally takes place. And there has been shown it is much healthier for our overall body to get when we raise our levels of vitamin D as a result of natural sun production, it does more for our body than it does supplementation.
What about sunscreen? Does sunscreen block our absorption of vitamin D at all?
Yeah, unfortunately it does.
Okay.
So it interferes with the fatty acids. So when you put sunscreen on there, you literally absorbs into those cells and it absorbs into the fatty acids. So now and most of the time it's going to be real toxic. So now you interfere with that biochemistry. Yeah. And then, then here we go. We're floating down the stream. All that's going directly to the liver. Liver is going to get congested and it'll back up hormones there. It'll back up vitamin D there. So yeah, so sunscreen's not my favorite. When it gets sunnier out, we'll talk about my natural sunscreen protocol as well.
Yeah, awesome. Because some people might think that they're going out in the sun, but if they're completely covered in sunscreen, they still might not be absorbing vitamin D.
No, not maybe. They're not.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. They're not. Yeah. And again, because this is the body doesn't act independently. Everything is working together. So when the body is exposed to the sun, the skin is having a reaction, the fatty acids are pulling in some photosynthesis, and your body is creating a response to the sun in the fatty acids, in the tissues. And when those tissues are full of chemicals, they're not going to have the same response. And it's really, really that simple. So, and then the areas that we typically get the most vitamin D production from, which is like chest and head and stuff like that, is where we put the most sunscreen.
Yeah, it really is.
I never encourage anyone to go out there and get a sunburn. That's equally as bad. Yeah, healthy doses of sun over time, super, super healthy for humans. I kind of trust the fact that our creator was intelligent enough. There's a reason that sun is big and unavoidable, right? Yes. And us little humans down here probably would benefit from getting a little bit of it. Otherwise, creator probably wouldn't have created so much sun. I don't know. It's my weird way of thinking.
Is there anyone that definitely should not supplement at all with vitamin D, or everybody should be okay with as long as they keep that dose?
I think if you have any, if you have those questions or you feel like you're having bad reactions, definitely talk to your doctor. There are different types out there. So I think I would answer that question in that way, Karen, where if you feel like you're reacting to it by taking a supplement, vitamin D supplement, make sure you talk to your doctor. But I haven't had
any supplement,
Oh, of
actually.
course. Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah, that holds true for everything. Yeah, vitamin D, relatively simple, I've never really seen an adverse reaction to it. Now I say that, and maybe some of the practitioners listen would come up with something, but I've never seen anything bad.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. Next question. My 20-year-old daughter is having anxiety, and I'd prefer to keep her off medications. Are there any effective holistic options? Well, maybe vitamin D.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Vitamin D, no doubt. If I'm having that individual sit in front of me and we're doing a consult, vitamin D is on my list to make sure that we're not only testing for it, and we are making sure that that individual has, proper amounts to function properly. So let's just go to the word anxiety for a moment. So remember, anxiety is a description, it's not a diagnosis. Okay. And it's real important. So we are describing how the body feels. And some of it's wound up, it's tunnel vision, there's tightness, there's a lot of emotions that go with it, yet it's a little bit different, a little bit unique for every individual, how they experience this. At the end of the day, there's an imbalance.
Yes.
In that imbalance, the more left unchecked, literally meaning we have to address what's going on. Most likely, in most cases that you're going to see anxiety, you see a combination of, say, causation. There are going to be deficiencies. Those deficiencies usually arise. We have mineral deficiencies, we have sleep deficiencies, we have fatty acid deficiencies, we have hormone deficiencies. So we have a whole group of biochemical challenges. Then we have emotional patterns, ways that we think, fear of the unknown, repetitive thoughts that keep driving through our head. And that is sometimes a runaway train. And even though we might be able to help someone say that's not true, that's a little bit different, sometimes they can't stop that train. And then we also have the physical body, meaning like what's going on with the physical body. It's almost like a dog sometimes, Karen, where if a dog doesn't get to exercise, doesn't innately get to move their body, burn off some energy, get exhausted physically, that's when you see aggressive dogs, you see dogs with anxiety, that's when you see barking dogs and misbehaved dogs. So we have so many ways. Destructive, yeah, yes. Yeah. So when we take a step back, we say 20-year-old girl with anxiety, we want to look at okay, so she's a 20-year-old human that's having these symptoms, these expressions. Where can we, when it comes to moving, eating, and thinking, where can we make some change here? Fortunately, instead of, I think because the question also talked about not using medications, there are some things like natural herbs, things like kava. That's a no-brainer. Kava is amazing. And again, I'm not acting as anyone's doctor or prescribing anything today. I'm just simply talking about ways that you can help system organs and glands in your body function better. Kava has a very nice relaxing effect on the human body. It takes us out of sympathetic dominance and puts us in parasympathetic. That feeling right there takes us out of anxiety, puts into calm. That's the beauty of kava. It is for anyone that has any anxiety, that needs to be your number one tool. Like it needs to be in your purse, in your pocket, in your car. And the moment you start to feel that emotion, you go to kava. Now, with that being said, that will protect you. That will inhibit it from literally going off the rails here and having maybe even a panic attack or ended up in the ER because things really, gotten too stressful. Sidestep from that, another herb I love for this one, which is more therapeutic, is ashwanganda. Okay. Ashwanganda is phenomenal. It is, we call it kind of a chill out pill, Disneyland in a bottle, and you can get this. We use herbs, and ashwanganda is an herb, but we use it in pill form, but we also have liquid form. So if someone says, can't take pills or I can't take the liquid, we have both options. Very, very good. That one's more of a daily use, which is phenomenal. Yet in this situation, we have to be real mindful of things like diet. We talk about how you move, eat, and think. When it comes to eating, if that individual who has these symptoms and these emotions of anxiety, if they're eating foods that drive that. Things like sugar, things like coffee and stimulants, and maybe they're on different types of medications that are triggering it even farther. We got to be mindful. So this is where I really kind of tone it down, and we'll try to use more yin foods, more earth and root type foods. I like fatty acids in this situation, avocados, oils. These are all calming foods versus things that are like going to stimulate us, like a cup of coffee or, sugar-based foods. So reeling in the diet, using the proper herbs like kava to make sure we don't have a moment in time. The beauty is that when that individual starts to use kava, and I literally, Karen, I see this every day, every single day. I have this young woman in my office right now. I am so proud of her. She comes rolling in there today, eyes up, eyes open, head up. Her posture's changed because now she has the confidence that she's not going to bust down into like an anxiety mode. She used to like creep into my office, and she's a beautiful young lady. She's probably 20. Maybe this is her mom's question. I don't know. And she carries a kava with her. In the beginning, she was reluctant to do it as if it was going to be like a crutch or a weakness. I said, no way. This is something I use. For me personally, I'll use kava. I go in waves. There's times when I'm real wound up and I'll be having projects and I have a hard time shutting off at night.
Yeah.
So I use kava. If people don't shut off, and then when we're not shutting off, we get addicted to stimulus.
Okay.
That is when you can't put your phone down.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Literally, your eyes hurt, you have a headache, and you keep picking it up.
Yeah.
You are
crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
you literally
notice that about yourself, right?
You're fueling the fire.
Yes.
And you see it coming.
Yeah.
And you still fuel it. So with that, that's where kava is wonderful.
Yeah.
That's where it just gives you time out so you don't go over the edge. And things like ashwanganda, fantastic. And then all the root foods and minerals. I don't want to discount the minerals. So listen, things like birth control. Oh man, birth control stops the production of serotonin. Serotonin needs minerals. Like no serotonin, anxiety's on its way. So there's a lot
too, right? Because there's got to be a link between how your gut's functioning and anxiety.
Yes, 100%. So that's where it all whittles down. We got to look at how you move, eat, and think. And if that's someone that's close to you, see where you can make the effects. In the short term, you just want to make sure that they're safe. Kava and ashwanganda, phenomenal.
Yeah. Okay. And then maybe work with someone to see what are some things that you can.
Yeah. Yes. Because I'm just scratching the surface there. So if that's me having a consult with someone, I'm also making sure that they have a foundation of minerals. I either use Min-Tran or Min-Chex. Min-Chex usually works a little bit better with my females. I'm making sure that their diet has ample amount of fats in it. I'm not fasting for long periods of time in this situation. I'm going to use food to help create calmness. So there's a lot of different methods here and just techniques that we'll use. And the beauty is here, Karen, is that the corrections happen fast. Yeah, they really do.
Yeah. Food is just, I realize if people have more complicated anxiety than perhaps I've experienced, but I especially used to get like a first thing in the morning, I wake up anxious, don't even have a chance to think about anything or worry about anything, but really anxious. And man, again, like really it was that time that I kind of did a cleanse that I realized there's like some food related stuff here that's massively affecting my anxiety. Like it just started to go away. Like what I eat affects my mood and my anxiety levels and how much I'm able to deal with in my day-to-day, just in such a massive way. And I think, like you were saying in the beginning, clinical insight tuning in, people aren't aware of how much actually what they're eating might be impacting their anxiety.
Yeah, I love the questioning when it comes to food is, do I like this food? Does this food like me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, does this serve me?
Yeah.
And that ties into the intuitiveness. And so it's not like, do I like this food? Oh, I love pizza. Does this food, do I like this food? Does my body like the nutrients that I'm giving it? Yeah. And the other thing, I don't want to leave it out as well, because all day in clinic, especially on a day like today, acupuncture and adjustments.
Oh yeah.
The shift that happens instantaneous, literally instantaneous.
Yeah.
So I'll share a little clinical insight to you about an acupuncture session we had today. First time acupuncture.
Okay.
Full-blown type A, exercise 5-6 days a week. And I bet it's at least 1 hour a day, if not 6 sessions a day. Healthy, young, 40-something-year-old mom, fit, beautiful, lies on my acupuncture table because I suggested it. She didn't even know why I should do it. I just suggested. I just says, "Well, I'm just gonna we're gonna swing the pendulum. We're gonna chill it out." I do a nice what we call Yin Protocol. It's where we get the chi that's being so suppressed. We shut off that bound up energy and just let it shift and just let things melt through the body. Just let things flow again. I come back in the room 25 minutes later and literally she said, what happened? And I said, what do you mean? She's like, you left and I started crying and I've been crying for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It was just, and it wasn't like sadness. It was just
release.
Yes. Releasing, coming out. And that's the anxiousness.
Yeah.
Not letting out. That's the dog that needs to go run. That's why exercise is such great medicine. How we move, how we eat, and how we think is all three of those can be super, super effective in helping these emotions of anxiety and depression. So.
Oh yeah. Acupuncture, if I get that it's a tension headache, but I can't really shift it. It's not working laying down. Acupuncture, like different, you're right. Different person off the table. Just amazing for me. Suddenly I'm like, oh, I've just had a headache. I've had a headache for like 3 days or something and it's gone. It's completely gone. I feel like a new person. If people haven't tried, acupuncture and chiropractic adjustments, you should at least give it a go because I find it amazing.
Yeah. So oftentimes we talk about breathing and anxiety.
Yeah.
In the middle of an anxiety attack, you can't breathe because you're stuck in sympathetic dominance. I make an adjustment to the thoracics T1 to T12, breath opens up.
Yeah.
Any chiropractor out there will tell you it's been happening, for them for decades. They've done it 1,000 times before. And literally our patients will say, oh my God, I can breathe better. Literally and we're not talking about hours, we're talking about seconds.
Yeah.
Just helping the central nervous system unwind. So hopefully that's helpful for whoever asked that question tonight.
Yeah. There's definitely some things you can try, before you maybe get to, and there might be a place for medications for some people, but there's definitely some things that people can give a go first, right? Before you end up on that train, because medications can be challenging. I know a number of people that have had to try different ones. People, some of them make you worse. It can be really tricky to navigate that journey once you start taking medications.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge there is that no matter what, you still have to go back and face it. You still have to go and deal with the emotions and build up the capacity to manage whatever is causing that, because just because you take the medication doesn't mean it goes away. You still have the same level of stress. You still have the same level of depletions that are taking place or deficiencies in your body. You still have the same level of exercise or not, probably the same diet, same, relationships, et cetera. So you haven't been challenged to, like in jiu-jitsu, we were talking about at the start of this conversation, to go home and get stronger, get faster, get fitter, or learn new techniques. And that can apply right here as well. Like that's the one challenge when we put the Band-Aid on it. And I get it. And I've made suggestions at times that I think you go see a doctor and maybe right now do short-term medications because we, may need it in those scenarios. But for the most part, the people that I see, we usually have that window of getting it done. And the beauty is it's fast. Like and I never want to use natural healthcare as a quick fix because it's not. We don't get in trouble overnight. We don't get overweight. We don't get cholesterol issues. We don't have blood pressure issues. We don't create adrenal fatigue overnight. These are things that take days, weeks, months, years, decades. And to respectfully embrace that journey of getting healthier is part of what makes us super strong. Yeah,
I'm sure. I love it. Okay, our next question here. Should I get vitamin C through an IV or through taking supplements?
All right, so it's a bit different here. So let's talk about both of these. So and they're both pretty popular. So we'll look at it two ways. One, so when you get vitamin C through an IV, you're essentially getting 100% what's called ascorbic acid. And that helps acidify the body. Very effective. It's very good. Challenge is very short-lived in that situation. That vitamin C will be in and out of your body quickly, really by the next morning. That's the reality. So vitamin C is water soluble. And when we test every morning, you do a pee test, you'll have almost zero levels of vitamin C after you pee. So we have to continuously restore those. So doing an IV to create good levels of vitamin C is probably not a very effective tool. To use vitamin C therapeutically, to maybe like, you came down with COVID, or I don't know, like you have a situation where you need this massive boost in your immune system, and you can dump in literally thousands of milligrams of IUs of vitamin C. Yes. Sometimes you go 50,000, some docs will get you up to 100. There are some protocols with helping things like cancer that
we use it through chemotherapy sometimes,
yes.
right? The IVs therapeutically.
But it's also important not to confuse that with you're getting ample amounts of vitamin C as the whole food vitamin C complex. And this is where I think a lot of people have a little bit of a misunderstanding. I think a lot of practitioners out there do have a misunderstanding this as well. It's like if I put up my hand right now, I have 4 fingers. I got pinky, a ring finger, a middle finger, an index finger, and a thumb. Well, vitamin C has, let's just say my thumb is ascorbic acid. Then there's vitamin P, vitamin J, the rutin factor, bioflavonoids. All of this is what makes up vitamin C.
Yeah, okay.
So each finger represents a different part of the enzyme. So if I said you only get one, which one you want, you might say, well, I'm going to take the thumb. But if you take the thumb without the fingers, it's not so good. So what'll happen if we take a whole bunch of synthetic supplements that only have an isolated, like just ascorbic acid, sometimes to act as an enzyme, to act as a hand, they have to recruit the others. So you could end up creating an imbalance. And this could happen with synthetic B vitamins, too much just like B6, or too much one vitamin of anything that's supposed to be in its whole food enzyme form. So my preference is that we take daily a type of vitamin C that's a full complex vitamin C. And yes, when you do that, when you take a whole food vitamin C, you're not going to see this massive level assayed on the back of the bottle that says, 500% of vitamin C as ascorbic acid. Because the only way you can do that is if you separate them. Otherwise, your vitamin would be the size of a ping pong ball, right? And we wouldn't do that. So there's a kind of a good for both. The daily practice of taking a whole food vitamin C is one of my favorite things. Here's why. One, I love it for skin health. The vitamin C enzyme, when you get vitamin C, it is one of the things that's going to help us bind collagen. And that's one of my favorite reasons. And of course, like no brainer when it comes to the immune system, but things just making healthy blood cells so you don't bruise easy. If you bruise easy, your gums bleed easy when you floss your teeth, vitamin C deficiency. So we see that all the time. And again, because it's very easy to deplete yourself. Sugar, medications, aspirins, all of those things are going to deplete those in a rapid pace, which means you got to get more of them back into your body. So daily whole food supplement, we use something called Cataplex C, usually about 6 a day. Phenomenal. There's days I'm super busy. It's part of what I help my collagen in my skin protect me from too much sun rays. So when I'm out working in the yard, what I've been doing a ton of lately, I'm gonna get my yard groove on, tractors and all that kind of fun stuff. When I'm out doing that, I take on a lot of sun. So I make sure I have ample amounts of the vitamin C and a couple others in there as well. The vitamin C injection, good. High levels of ascorbic acid kind of ends there. It doesn't work as an enzyme in the body. Not going to do anything for your collagen.
So you kind of, if you were going to do the IV, you need to be doing the supplementation as well. Like, can you take them together?
You could. Yeah, you absolutely could. I don't think there's ever a time that I would suggest you not use like a whole food vitamin C, where the IV, I think that's, I would suggest using that in those situations therapeutically that you need it, but not to maintain an everyday good level of vitamin C.
Yeah, it would be more something is going on with your body. You need that boost.
Yeah, you've got pneumonia, you've got some kind of virus pattern going on, you're using it as a strategy in fighting off a particular disease or a protocol or something to that effect.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. Next question. Should I get genetic testing done?
Karen, I love testing. I love being inquisitive. I love to learn new things about my body, about my clients' bodies. So I do a fair amount of genetic testing. I'll tell you this. It's still a work in progress. We learn more now than we did just 3 years ago about whether it be a stool test. And at the same time, if you're not dialed in on everything else, don't waste your money.
And there's different kinds of genetic tests as well, isn't there? Like some people, when they ask about genetic testing, they think they're looking for disease risk, but you can also do genetic testing for kind of optimizing what works.
Yeah, you can look and look at your telomere testing, which years ago, that was the big rage, Karen. Now it's not.
Yeah, okay.
So we now, well, that was testing, but that wasn't telling us exactly what we thought. And I've spent money on it. I've had a lot of my clients. It was good data for what we knew at the time, yet it's still evolving. And that's what I was saying. But to your point, yes, we can do genetic testing that lets us know things that we are susceptible to genetically. Like many of us don't even know it, but we might have a gene for certain autoimmune conditions. We may have gene for diabetes. We may have gene for heart disease. And there are different genetic codes we can do that'll give us an idea of those. Now, the reason I say if you don't have it dialed in, don't bother. I don't think that many people, when I say dialed in, how you move, how you eat, and you think, let's talk about how you think for just a moment. If you do a genetic test and it says that you can develop diabetes, you have the gene for it, and you think as a result of that, you're getting diabetes, you shouldn't do that test.
No, I agree.
A lot of people did this.
It's a huge rabbit hole. The power of the mind is
significant.
Insane,
we saw this with the BRCA test, which is the breast cancer gene. It only says it's a possibility, and it's still less. I don't know what the percentage is, but I think it's less than 5%, Karen.
I know, but then do you get a double, mastectomy?
Well, for a while, that test basically meant get a double mastectomy.
Yeah.
And so that's where I say, so
it's not a small thing to choose.
No. So typically when it comes to testing, I start small. I'll do a standard lab test, like a blood draw. And then I like my functional tests around it to see how the systems, organs, or glands are doing. If you're moving forward and you want to get to that next level and you're doing pretty well, then let's do some genetic testing. Let's see what things like your mitochondria are doing. Let's go ahead and take a look at, see what you're more susceptible to, so we can move you in a direction that, that serves you best. Yet if you're not going to dial in your diet, because those things are all going to point to epigenetics.
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell. So if you get one that says you have a family history and of diabetes, okay, don't eat sugar.
Yeah.
Stop eating the bread.
Yeah. Things you can do about it. So if you come from an aspect of, hey, I've got this genetic predisposition, so I'm going to really dial my diet and my mindset to be able to not turn on that gene and not end up there, awesome. But if you end up using it as, it's inevitable, I'm going to get diabetes, then that's where the danger, I guess, comes in.
Right. So yes, should you get it? If you'd like to, but I would say hopefully it's more than just being inquisitive. Like you're looking to build more strategies.
Yeah, awesome. Probably no harm in getting the genetic test that shows you where you're from. Do you think you know that one?
Yeah, the 23andMe, isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. My genes are 99.9% English, so I had no diversity at all, which was kind of interesting.
There you go.
Anyway, awesome. All right. Well, there were some awesome questions. We've run out of time. So let's move on to our last question, which is, what is one action item our listeners can take to move them towards their goal of becoming superhuman?
Real simple. Just tune in. Continue to be intuitive. Continue to, know your body, know thyself. And that is one of the best doctors you'll ever have. You start to literally learn your body, what type of movements, what type of eating, what type of thinking serves you. You do that and you're well on your way to being awesome.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you back the same time, same place next week for another episode of the Health Made Simple show.
Yes, and of course, appreciate and love all you guys. Keep doing your thing. Keep sharing it out. Keep spreading the love. You never know who might hear or listen to something like this and it make that little impact to change their lives. And of course, for all of us, let's continue to take deliberate action for our minds, our body, overall wellness. Y'all be awesome.